Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome everybody back to the Ringside View episode of the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast, the first interview of 2024. And I'm delighted to announce that my guest today is someone that has co-owned probably the biggest wrestling company in London, or maybe in his words, the biggest wrestling company in London. Mr. Lee McAteer from Progress Wrestling. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thanks, Adam. Thank you very much for having me. I'm sure that initial statement will create some viral buzz immediately. So yeah, thank you for that one.
No worries, mate. Controversy creates cash and all of that, as Mr. Eric Bischoff would say.
Oh, absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
We were talking about Eric off air, guys. That's why. That's what it was just about. No, but Lee, thank you very much for coming on. It's wonderful to have a stalwart of British wrestling on, and as I mentioned before, Progress Wrestling is synonymous over here in the UK for putting on great shows. I can vouch for that. I attended one, the Long Halloween. I
Oh,
attended.
very good. Very
Was
good.
you dressed up on that?
Yes, I was. Embarrassingly, I was dressed as Big Bird this time.
Was you? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Except there was actually two of us dressed as Big Bird. There was Mad Dog Mike Angus,
yeah.
and there was myself. And then the year before, he was dressed as Mario, and I was dressed as Luigi. So yeah, basically, even though I look like the fat plumber, but he was the tall, skinny one. But is what it is.
It was brilliant. I mean, that show was. I think Spike Trevay ended up in my lap early doors. We'll get on to Spike. I know there's a bit of an issue there, so we'll keep Spike to a side briefly. But
Hmm.
let's just talk about you firstly before we get to Progress. I know about the story about how you got into Progress. I've seen it and I've read up on it. You've done the podcast about it, but more so about how you say fell in love with the world of wrestling before we move into Progress. How did you do that?
Well, I suppose like a lot of people, I was a massive fan of it as a kid. I mean, I was literally the biggest Bret the Hitman Hart fan
Oh,
going. Um, Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be in a position in which I could get ringside to the point where I would be able to get some of those incredible shades that he had. But my mum and dad took me to the GMX in Manchester. I think it was 1993. It was headlined by the Nature Boy Ric Flair versus Bret Hart. It might be 92, one of the two. I'm sure someone will correct me on that. I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. It was such a wonderful experience, and it always was something that I was really, really passionate about. But I suppose as you get older, you, I suppose, have different tastes and things like that. And then randomly, I was living at a flat in a place called Hooton, and we'd come in on a night out. Friday night SmackDown would be on, and we'd all have had, probably far too many beers, if I'm being quite honest with you. We'd watch it. But I don't get me wrong, I still had a passion for it. But what I really became semi-obsessed with was how Vince marketed the WWE. Because at that particular point, I was coming into some of my own entrepreneurial type activities, or thinking about them at least. And I just thought the way that this is pushed and promoted and everything else in between, I thought this is fascinating. And that was kind of the initial starting point for what may or may not be in the future. And then when I created the AmeriCamp and Camp Thailand brands, I literally was using marketing tactics that were very, very similar to WWE. So it was join the AmeriCamp revolution, a bit like with Evolution back in the day and all that kind of stuff. And I was just very, very obsessed with how they were doing that stuff. And then randomly for my 30th birthday, my girlfriend humbly got me WrestleMania tickets for what was
Wow.
WrestleMania 30.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I thought to myself, okay, we've got the tickets. There must be an organization that can do the donkey work for me in terms of accommodation, flights, blah, blah, blah. And there was nobody. And I thought, I don't get it. This is bizarre. And I was doing more research on it, couldn't find anything about it. So I thought to myself, well, maybe there's an opportunity here to create a travel business in the world of wrestling. Because at the time I had an Abter and Atoll bonded travel company with the other brands that I had. And then from that, I literally was, again, a couple of drinks. I think I was in Florida, I think. And I thought to myself, you know what, let's try this. And I thought to myself, I'm going to give myself a £500 marketing budget to see if I can get something to work. And then one thing led to another, and then wrestling travel was born. And then that then gave me a total insight into the world of the business, I would argue, very much so on the independent side by working with organizations that include, for example, TNT Extreme Wrestling.
Yeah.
But then we were then sending people to all of these wrestling events all around the world. So from everywhere in the States to Japan and onward. And I thought, wow, this is absolutely awesome. And then what then became a bit more apparent was the opportunities to sponsor some of these promotions, get involved with some of the talent and everything else in between. We created a ticketing system to help the promotions because the wrestling travel brand, from a social media perspective, was getting some serious traction in terms of engagement, likes, and whatnot. So, what we tried to become was a ticketing service for wrestling promotions that had a real legit promotion aspect to them by putting things out onto the wrestling travel platforms across all the different social media spectrums. And then I sold that business alongside AmeriCamp and Camp Thailand in, I think it was June 2021. And then, but before that, I was then having conversations with a number of people, including Progress people at the time. And what was quite funny was there was an article that went out on TalkSport about how I was looking to invest into the British scene. What what was quite amusing, especially looking back now, even though it wasn't true at all, is that these journalists thought it was RevPro, which I don't know where they got that from. I've got no idea. It wasn't, and but it was just quite funny. And then when I revealed to one particular journalist under an NDA, I said, right, I said, actually, it's Progress. They thought I was mad. They thought I was bonkers for a whole variety of reasons because Progress had gone through a really tough time. But I was always a believer in the brand. I always believed that it could do, I don't want to say so much more, but I just felt that after speaking to so many of the talent and speaking to so many people in the industry, I just thought maybe I can do something. Maybe I can bring it back. Maybe I can give it a go. But truthfully, I know what I'm okay at, and there's a lot of stuff I'm not very good at. And I was very fortunate as part of being associate director of Tranmere Rovers to work alongside the likes of Martin Best, and I wanted to work with Martin for a long time on a different project. And I turned around to him and said, Martin, this is going to sound absolutely bonkers. I said, but I've got an opportunity here to acquire a wrestling company. It's gone through, let's be frank about it, it went through a real tough time. I said, but I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I really think that we could have a lot of fun doing it, but it's really important that we at least try to put in the same standards and procedures of what you see in football. And Martin also had experience in basketball as well at the highest level. That we try and do this into the world of BritRes, if you want to kind of use the phrase for it. And then the conversations were going back and forth over a long period of time. And in the September of 2021, because I was living in Portugal, I came back, didn't tell anybody that I'd come back. I had to go into quarantine because I wasn't able to get the jab to come back. And then met the previous owner in King's Cross. I was at an office by King's Cross, and one thing led to another. And then we obviously brought Progress back for what was chapter 127. And I'll never forget when Gene Money came out, dressed as a spaceman and everything else in between. And I'm an emotional guy at the best of times, but it really put tears in my eyes because I thought to myself, win, lose or draw, we're going to give it everything we've got, and we're going to try our very best to bring it back and more. But we were very much aware as to how big a task it was, and in truth, it's probably a bigger task than I expected, if I'm being perfectly frank with you. But we're giving it everything we've got. I've got a fantastic team, around me. And in truth, they're the ones that, if we do get any plaudits, then they're the ones that deserve them. But everybody is working their backsides off. We've got big global aspirations. We're going back to America for the first time in a long time. We're going to be part of the collective, which is very, very exciting. And for me, there's no doubt, of course, that Progress's spiritual home will always be the Electric Ballroom in Camden.
Yeah.
But for the brand to really, in my opinion, get to that next level, it needs a lot more global eyeballs on it, which then comes into the American strategy and other things that we've done to take that brand global.
Yeah, I was certainly done a great job, to be honest. The shows that I've been to are great. I always hear great things about it. That I was going to get into the roster, funny enough, straight away. Every sort of BritRes independent has a core roster, and you guys do. But there's also the aspect of adding imports, and sometimes the imports can be from the UK, for argument's sake. And more recently, even at unboxing, and we're going to get into that in a bit. You debuted a couple of people, and two people that I know through Ignite Wrestling was Mark True and Kieran Lacey, who debuted
Yeah.
as part of your unboxing. In terms of the BritWres side, we'll get into the imports from America and Japan. How do you go about looking? Do you do the research? What, and also what people are you looking for? Because obviously you're losing Leon Slater, or the BritWres will be losing Leon Slater to a degree soon to TNA. How do you go about replacing him with another member of the BritWres?
Well, I mean, if you talk about Leon Slater as a starting point, I mean, the inside joke is that Leon's an alien. He's just from a different planet, and
Yeah.
Leon is just he's phenomenal, and we're just really proud internally in the fact that we've played a very small part in getting him to the point that he is, and nobody's prouder of him than myself and the rest of the Progress team because, and I appreciate it's not just Progress, it's a number of promotions that have
Yeah.
helped make that happen, but if we are at the point in which talent are then taking that next level. Now, of course, selfishly, I want us to be that next level, and that's one of the reasons why we're going to America, etc., etc. But you know what? It shows that the talent pool in BritWres is very much there,
Yeah.
and I do think we are about to see a whole new generation of talent that are going to be taking things to that next level. Again, of course, I want that to be with us, but if it isn't, then good luck to them because it means that even in a very small way, we've helped them. I remember Leon at the Everything Pattern show at the Dome. It was the first time I'd seen him live, and one of my colleagues said, "You won't believe how good this kid is." And I'm like, "Okay, great." And I remember him doing what is now one of his signature moves, where he's literally doing the somersault over the corner
Yeah.
into. I remember. I think I was stood next to Jonathan Gresham one time he did it, and I remember Gresh just turning around going, is this guy real? It was just, and for someone like Gresh just kind of say that, you kind of realize how good a talent he is. But we're, and like I said, I'm sure this is the same for a number of our promotions and not just Progress, but humbly we get a huge amount of talent that aren't necessarily on Progress or may have been on Progress in the past that want to come back onto the promotion. Of course, where it becomes difficult is that there's only so many spots on the card.
Yeah.
And it's a question of, well, how do you manage that expectation without being rude, especially if a talent turns around and says, well, what can I do to make that happen? Now, there are certain things that we look for, and I suppose it varies from promotion to promotion. I would argue that what Progress Wrestling is that we tell stories. That's what Progress Wrestling is about. But it's a given that you've got to be excellent in the ring. It's almost like as a football analogy. If someone's, for the most part, if someone's playing as a professional football, you know that they can at least go.
Yeah.
The question is, what are those extra bits that are going to make them stand out from one person to the next? The people I like to work with are the ones that are willing to really kind of get into the character work, because that's how we tell stories is very much in relation to that. So I suppose maybe that's where, but again, it's obvious to judge rather than me say one way or the other. But I would argue at Progress, our USP is the storytelling aspects of what we do, whereas maybe other promotions are probably a bit more match related, I would argue. But then I don't know enough about some of these other promotions. What I will say is I do watch a lot of independent wrestling. I do watch a lot of other on-demand services to be able to get an idea in terms of how where people are at. There's certain people that, without embarrassing them, that I have so much respect for. One of which would be Dean Allmark, for example. I think Dino is one of the greatest talents that the UK has ever produced, ever. You look at Tony Storm's finishing move, that was something that Dino taught her. For me, one of, if not the best trainer in the country from the feedback that I get from a lot of other talent. So I try to go to people that have got more experience than me to get their take on things, because what I didn't want to do was come in, especially in the first year, and pretend that I knew everything, because the reality is that I don't. I'm learning, I'm trying to be a sponge. And I wanted to get to the point where if I then did say something to a talent, I've got the respect of the talent to be able to take on board that feedback that I'm giving them. Now, don't be wrong, I'm learning, but I can't necessarily give, for example, feedback in terms of movement or certain aspects. What I can give feedback on is the storytelling aspects, the social media side of things, and the character work, everything else in between. That's where I can. But I've got people in around me that hopefully will raise up the talent within those things. And it's fantastic when you're giving people, their I mean, I don't want to say dream shot because that's obviously subjective as to whether it is or not, but when you can give someone like Trim and Lacey their progress debut, it's a fantastic feeling because you can see from behind the scenes how important it is to them, and also, dare I say it, you look at the caliber of talent that have come through progress. You look at Walter, obviously Gunter,
Yeah.
Pete Dunne, I mean, Will Ospreay. I mean, just there's so many people that had a grounding in progress and beyond. I mean, people forget that MJF was on progress,
It was.
as part of the last American tour. Um, and so it's a very fortuitous position to be in, but it's a responsibility I don't take lightly because I understand how important it is, and I take the business incredibly seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how it should be. But is it also important that you get the right character behind the curtain as well, not just what the people see, but the people that, but like yourself, you said you're a sponge. Well, sometimes you need to bring in those younger ones that are a sponge themselves, that are learning, that are good in the ring, but there is aspects of that, but they also that they bond well with the core roster that you've got there.
Yeah, very much so. I suppose where it becomes a little bit more complicated with progress is that, and I have tried to keep up with a lot of the traditions of of unboxing, of NPS, and things like that, because for me that's what's part of Progress's history. So where sometimes it does become a bit more complicated is that in terms of trying to look at new talent, we'd rather put the new talent onto an NPS show or some element of NPS to then gauge where they're at with things or whether or not we think that they're talent that we want to move forward from. I mean, you look at people like Cara Noir, who was in NPS and stuff like that, who's just, I mean, absolutely unbelievable talent, absolutely unbelievable. So sometimes it's harder to debut new talent with Progress on the Brit Rest scene because we're trying to follow some of the traditions. And then the next question is when is NPS? When is this going to happen? And everything else that's in between. But for the most part, and it's not easy for me at all because just purely because of my other commitments that I've got. But if a talent will make the effort to come and speak to me, send me some stuff, I will legitimately watch some of their stuff. Legit, I will. It's not always possible to watch every single little thing. Where it does become difficult is when you've got a talent that is sending a lot of stuff through, but there isn't a spot on the card, if that makes sense. It's like at the moment with our US show, we're going to be giving talent visas, American visas, which, to my understanding, I think it was only Progress in the past that actually did something similar. And we're now going down that route again. So being able to say to some talent, you've got a visa, you've not got a visa, and everything else in between, some of those conversations are unbelievably difficult. But what I would say is that there's an opportunity, an avenue to then get onto Progress, prove everybody's a collective wrong, and then they can see what those next steps are. So see the likes of Leon being signed by TNA and and other conversations that, rightly or wrongly, I'm aware about. It's great because it shows that the scene is growing again. But the one thing that I would probably put forward that I think is so important, and it was so important after speaking out, especially, is about unity and trying to give the talent safe environments to work in. And I know that's not the coolest thing to say at all, completely like that. But for me, that was so important. Little things to ensure that they've got water and snacks behind the scenes and everything else like that. That for me is an absolute given. But it's still sad to me that there's a lot of British promotions out there that I still get feedback from talent that they're still not being given what I would class as those kind of basics, really. And again, whilst it might not be the most popular thing to say, as we have two medics at every show, we have somebody that's it's like a physio that will actually help with the talent, work with the talent. Because for me, and like I said, I don't always get it right, but it's about trying to treat people how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And if you can do that and look in the mirror and say, well, actually, at least for the most part, I've tried to do that, then the rest hopefully then underlies that foundation to then move on about the storytelling and everything else in between, really.
Yeah, exactly that. Couldn't agree more. Echo those comments are good about, especially about the backstage bit, making sure they're fully, because it also makes them. And not that anyone wouldn't want to come back to Progress, but it does give you that vibe where well, at least they look after us as well as a promotion, which is
Yeah,
massive.
yeah. And again, I'm not saying we always get it right, but
Mm,
we do legitimately try our best at all times. But I suppose that's again subjective to each particular talent, really.
exactly. No, you're right. It totally is. Does it work out for the same for like the imports that you get? I think when I come last time, Casey Navarro was there. Very exciting.
What a star Casey
Yeah,
Navarro
yeah,
is, by the way.
yeah.
I I I can't even begin to tell you how much of a dream it is to work with Casey Navarro.
Mm.
He is absolutely phenomenal. The future that Casey Navarro has is so exciting and legit. Any other promoters that are watching this, reach out to Casey, book him. He is incredible. He is a dream to work with. His storytelling is off the charts. And to say he can go in the ring would be an understatement. And we're so excited to welcome him back to Super Strong Style, or
Yeah.
what to debut for Super Strong Style, even though he's obviously been with us before.
Yeah, I thought his match was good. I think he was. I think I'm sure it was was it a 3 or 4 way he was in?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 4 way. It was 4 way, wasn't it? He was absolutely tremendous. Axel Tischer was there as well with Damo. That's another great. But that was just great that you can bring those names in as well. And I think Light of the Dragon coming up, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. That Mustafa Ali against obviously Leon Slater, which is going to be an incredible contest because Mustafa Ali released by WWE, perhaps not necessarily given the opportunities. He's now getting an opportunity to shine over here. He's talking about this Ali tour that he's going on. But that just shows the name of Progress and how it's out there in the States already. The fact that a name like Ali and people like that want to come over, grizzled young veterans are coming back because they know of Progress and how good it actually is to work for you.
Well, I mean, that's very kind of you to say. I mean, obviously, I can't comment for everybody, and I'm sure there's some people out there that might think differently. But what I will say is that with Progress is that we try to showcase the stars because they are stars, all of them, every single well, most of them. There's a few I have a few arguments with, but anyway, that's another story for another time. Or certain people are getting my face, but anyway, we'll leave that. But for the most part, we try and give them a really good treatment. And when I say treatment, in terms of the video packages, the way that we present them, so they can showcase their star power. Because one of the things that we're incredibly proud about at Progress is the VTs, the promo videos that we put together and the standard of them. And again, yeah, of course I'm biased, of course I am, but I would argue that our promo videos stand up to anybody else in the business, and I really, really mean that. You look at the promo videos for Alexis and Nina,
Mhm.
the Clock Strikes Midnight match, to Cara Noir versus Mr. Trevay, and a few other bits in between. For me, because at the end of the day, if you're not passionate about what you do, then why are you doing it? But for me, being in that electric ballroom and seeing the reaction of the fan base to those particular promo videos and stuff like that, it's all that hard work coming together. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a kick out of it, you
Mm.
know. But my job is legitimately is to try and do whatever I can to get that particular talent seen more, noticed more, whatever. That is my job. Even if at times some of the talent might want to work with me on a personal basis.
Yeah, exactly. I can obviously go for those VTs as well. When I was there, it was fantastic to see that. And obviously, even though, and you mentioned the storylines, Mr. Trevelyan and Kid Lycos had an absolute blowout over the last few, which ended up with Lycos having to unmask in the end, unfortunately. But that just goes to show and proves your point about stories. Everyone was invested when we went there. Lycos and Trevelyan just were fighting all over the place before the show had even started. Pretty much as soon as Trevelyan had come out. I remember, I think Lycos kicked my other ass foot and then Trevay ended up in my lap. But the crowd was so invested, and the ending of it, the crowd, it was like a deafening silence, even to a point when Trevay won it, and Lycos had to obviously legitimately unmask. But that is exactly what you were looking for, in a sense.
Well, again, it's storytelling,
Mm.
and it's not something that I can take credit for. It's a massive team effort in terms of what those storytelling aspects are. I mean, I have to say, I mean, again, appreciate I'm biased, but I thought it was just their storyline and their feud has been unbelievable. absolutely incredible. Um, yeah, so yeah, very very proud of that.
Yeah, it was very great to watch and invested in it as well, which is thing for me. And I like to be invested in that sort of thing because it makes it more exciting for me, probably as nearly 40. So you I probably grew up near enough the same. Don't know how old you are, Lee, but you know, that
26, man,
oh,
26.
there, there you go. But you know, my first event was SummerSlam '92, for argument's sake. So you know,
Oh, nice. That's a hell.
nice
That's
one,
a,
yeah.
that's a hell of a one to start off with.
Yeah, hell of a
Uh,
one to start off with. But you know,
yeah.
but investing in storylines is really important to me. I'm not one of these ones that would jump up and cheer. I'm more watching.
Hmm.
I will sit there. Yes, I'll clap and I'll cringe at a chop every now and again because you know how hard they hit. Especially the likes of Walter and even Luke Jacobs nowadays has got a hit
What
on
a
it.
star Luke Jacobs is, by the way.
Yes, what a start.
That's another one, you know. But
Oh,
the thing is that let's be frank about it. Professional wrestling, it's not ballet.
no, it definitely. I've done it. I've done it for about 4 weeks, and I realized pretty soon that, or I realized pretty quickly that it wasn't for me. Not just because it hurt. I mean, obviously, there's the athletic side to it that I don't have, but it hurts like hell. I can absolutely invest in that for
It
sure.
does, and that's the thing is that you've got. I think there's one thing I learned from Mr. Palios, who's the chairman of Tranmere, is you can't teach fans how to be fans. You can't
No.
try and say what they're going to say. And where win, lose or draw, whether you like it or you don't like it. For me, there's got to be that underlying respect, the fact that these boys and girls are
Mhm.
absolutely putting their bodies on the line for your entertainment.
Yeah.
And even if there's certain talent that I don't see eye to eye with, I've still got that underlying respect for them because of that.
Mm.
And that's where I think sometimes, and perhaps maybe the fans possibly forget about those kind of things because it does hurt. It really hurts. I mean, literally, I've been to A&E twice with two different wrestlers, and it sucks. It
Mm.
really sucks.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
And that's what they do just for us. So it is that. I mean, I kind of have that. I have that respect. I'm not in wrestling like you are. I'm into wrestling, and I know it enough, and I respect it enough to know, the how it affects. I mean,
yeah,
what I've seen them behind the curtain, and I know that they may be springing around, but when they get back there after, it can be a different story, totally
yeah,
different story in terms of their bodies and how they're beat up. But so massive kudos to everyone that does it, not just the ones that progress. Any wrestler, anyone that steps through those ropes deserves a massive amount of respect because they really are putting their lives on the line just for us to cheer and boo and throw stuff at them, or whatever we do as a fan. But they
yeah.
are split seconds away of any move from causing permanent and sometimes worse damage to themselves. So we have to really respect everyone that steps foot in that ring for that reason. Let's quickly move on to unboxing. There was a little bit on YouTube, and I know you said it's going to be addressed with Mr. Trevay, so we won't massively get into that. I know you mentioned progress. We are going to address that later at some point later down the line, so we won't massively
Oh,
get into.
again, for me, we take the welfare of our team very, very
Hmm.
seriously. It's something that we're investigating behind the scenes, so I
Yeah.
can't really comment more on that, I'm afraid.
No, exactly. And I wouldn't want you to, especially because we don't know the ins and outs of everything that's going on. But unboxing itself, bonkers for me because I sit here and I think because ultimately, every British independent company, even not even British, WWE and AEW and everything will say, we've got this person coming on the show. You've got to come to this show because like WWE, CM Punk comes next week, so buy your tickets. They've got all of that. You go, come to our show. We're not telling you who's coming. We're not telling you the matches. I mean, be it Mayfairs and Miller had the street fight, which was the only match that was announced. But just come to Progress, and we're not telling you who. We're not telling you who's going against each other. But it adds that it's bonkers, but it's a great idea, and but it also shows again people believe in Progress because they've turned up to see this event that they don't know who's going to be there. So it's again kudos to the brand and for people knowing it's Progress Wrestling, so it's going to be great.
Well, and it's very kind of you to say. I can't take credit for the idea. What
Mm.
I will say is that I did tweak it ever so slightly, and just to kind of give a bit of context to it, because of the stuff that we inherited for speaking out and stuff like that, is I did speak to a number of fans and Club Progress members about whether or not unboxing should carry on to the point that people might want to know who's on the card. After speaking to a number of them and getting excellent feedback in terms of them believing in myself and Martin and our standards and everything else like that, we thought, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to keep the unboxing concept, but let's be frank about it. Everybody at Christmas likes to open one present early. So
Hmm.
we thought what we would do is we would announce one match,
Yeah.
and that's what we would do, but the rest of the card would be unknown. So
Brilliant.
that's where we've basically made a slight tweak to that particular scenario. But it's yeah, it's I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty bonkers way of doing things, and also sometimes it's who's available, who's not available, people are back for Christmas,
Yeah.
and and everything else that's in between. But yeah, it's a fantastic concept, especially when you see the reactions of the fans, and it's obviously genuine because they've got no idea who's coming out, like True and Lacey, for
Yeah.
example. And then all of a sudden they then get the respect because of how good they were in their match with Sanity and Sunshine Machine. So hopefully we've then raised those guys further in terms of their profile,
Mm.
and yeah, it's yeah. But the thing is that you can't always please everybody.
No.
Um, but to finish the night on Kid Lycos versus Eddie Dennis, I thought was
Yeah.
really special, and the obviously for many reasons, but it was emotions were running really really high because of the unbelievably sad news
Yeah.
of Curtis
Mhm.
and everything else that went into that. So I sincerely hope that in terms of what we did him and his family and friends proud, and it was yeah, very emotional to see all of that and to see some of the moments of unboxing, and especially when Session Moth Martina took out the keyboard against LA Taylor and Sky Smithson. So that was a nice nod to Kurt.
It was, and you talk about LA Taylor. She's one of our people that we sponsored this year, and she always makes sure you mention me on the show. Well, you've done it yourself, Lee. So I
Oh, I mean, LA Taylor's a star, but what I will say, especially with some of the stuff I've had to deal with Lana Austin, to say I don't want to mess with LA Taylor would be an absolute understatement. And and obviously the stuff that's been happening with the Lana Austin experience
Yes.
and Rob Drake and what
Mhm.
all that means and everything else in between, it's yeah, I'm steering out the way for that one.
Definitely do not mess with LA Taylor. She's a force to be reckoned with, and we're very happy that we've got her under a wing. And you mentioned Eddie Dennis, and I will have to say he's coming for our title in a couple of weeks. He will be taking on our champion at the next our next show with Ignite. So Eddie Dennis may be the soon to be the turnbuckle champion. Who knows? But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, one thing for sure, you'll be partying hard, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, looking forward to that afterwards. That's for sure. But no, Eddie's a great guy, and he's actually stepping in because Dries, he's in America. It was meant to be Dries going against, but he's got some bookings in the States. So
Oh, okay.
well done to Dries, and thank you to Eddie Dennis. And we'll hopefully have another match just like the one you had at the main event of unboxing. Speaking of your shows, next one, Light of the Dragon. I need to ask a question, though, Lee. What is a Thunder Bastard match?
Off now. So, Thunder Bastard is a match in which talent will start off one and two, and then the real question is who's going to be left at the end
Mhm.
after pinfalls, etc. And then the winner of that Thunder Bastard will then get a key, and that key unlocks an opportunity to a championship shot of their choosing.
There we go. And so far, from your Facebook page anyway, Connor Mills is in it.
Yep.
Mark Haskins, Luke,
Hmm.
Luke Jacobs, my word. Gene Money, another good friend of ours. Tate Mayfair's, Kid Lycos, and I'm no good at Japanese names. Is it Yoshi? Yoshi?
Yeah, Yochi. Yeah.
Thank you.
Formerly known as Inamura, who's an unbelievable talent, by the way, from Noah. Absolutely incredible. I mean, yeah, it's going to be so many amazing talent, a lot to prove. I mean, I'll openly say this: I don't see eye to eye with Tate Mayfair's at all. But I hate to say it, you can't not respect some of the things that ended up happening in that match with Simon Miller.
Mm,
The ending, he didn't need to do it, Tate, at all.
no,
But Tate's obviously the TNT Extreme Wrestling World Champion, absolutely tearing it up on there. But I mean, yeah, it's going to be. and obviously, and also Kid Lycos will be the number one entrant into the Thunder Bastard as well. So,
Yeah.
he's, without being unprofessional, I just hope any of them kick Spike Trivet's ass, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Well, there you go. That could be it could be sweet bittersweet revenge for a kid like us if he was to win that. I personally, there's two talents in there. I mean, all of them are great, but two of them that do for me are Jacobs is one. I think he's absolutely amazing. I've seen him quite a lot. He's such a hard hitting guy. He really kind of for me like if I said someone said describe to me progress, I'd say Luke Jacobs because that's just who I think. And the other one I'm looking at, again, I know him. He was on. We put on we sponsored a show last year with Ignite called Buckle Up, and there was a guy there by the name of Colin Mills. I'm not sure about his hair choices these days, but inside the ring,
I'm not sure we're one to talk, Adam, on hair, to be honest with you. And I can say that from a personal perspective as well. But
yeah,
no, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I certainly wouldn't have the guts to say it to Connor's face.
no, we're not. Hence why I'm doing it on here. Colin Mills is another one. I think he's absolutely brilliant. So two of them are my one. Two, I can't even pick two. Can I have to pick a winner? So I'd have to go with Jacobs just because I just think he's amazing. I said the word progress wrestling and it's Luke Jacobs all over. Um, you got a really good tag match on the cards. All the Griddled Young veterans recently, obviously finished up with NXT. Coming over. And again, what a team to put them against. Sunshine Machine.
Well, it's unbelievable. I mean, Sunshine Machine, in terms of the PWI rankings, have been getting really high. They've been talking back and forth with FTR. You can see that in the social media, what's going on there. Sunshine Machine, they're the real deal. There's no way away from it. They are the real deal. And their match, I mean, and you've got to remember back in the day when Drake and Gibson were very much part of the furniture at Progress.
Mm-hmm.
The guys, who are Sunshine Machine were a very different part of the card. Now the reality is that I think Grizzled and Veterans have got everything to prove against Sunshine Machine. But one thing's for sure, that is going to be absolutely, I mean, it's going to be incredible. And what I think is going to be really interesting is to see the reception that GYV actually get when they come back to the ballroom.
Yeah.
Because it's funny because it was I was at OTT and they had a fantastic show in Wolverhampton and absolutely phenomenal. And it was one of those weird scenarios where I don't think people knew how to react to GYV because they're almost, the crowd's like really proud of them for what they're doing, what they're achieving, but they're so used to booing them and they just didn't quite know how to react. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see the kind of reception they get at the ballroom. And of course, James's brother Rob and everything that Rob's trying to achieve now in Progress, etc. So we can't wait to welcome them back to the ballroom.
No, I can't. It's going to be great. I can't wait for it myself. The women's match that's been announced is Kanji versus Nina Samuels. Again, Nina Samuels, I know very well. She's collecting belts everywhere she goes. So perhaps Rio needs to have one eye on her shoulder, one eye looking behind her after this one.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, the match that Rio and Nina had at unboxing. I mean, it could have gone either way, but it's certainly, I think there's a lot more to come there. That's for sure.
Definitely so. And then the last match has been announced. We've already kind of discussed it. Leon Slater versus Mustafa Ali. I don't know. I mean, that's just going to be. That is literally TNT. Bosch roof is going to come off the ballroom. I think for this one.
I totally agree. I mean, it's probably wrong to try and put so much pressure there, but if there was ever a match of the year candidate already, that's one of those matches. And I appreciate it sounds like promoter BS, right? And I wouldn't disagree if people are going to say that to me. But if someone can honestly look at me in the eye and say that isn't a match that you have to be there live for, I just don't know I just don't know what is, because you've got, Leon. We all know, like I said, he's an alien. He's out of this world. He's on a different planet. And we all know how amazing Mustafa Ali is.
Yeah.
So those boys have got a lot to prove to one another. So I have to say, whoever's going to be in the front row at Progress is probably going to become very close to both of them, I would imagine. But yeah, we're super, super excited to welcome Ali to the ballroom and everything else in between. And it's going to absolutely take the roof off. Absolutely no doubt. And we're very fortunate to have what will be his first UK appearance since leaving the WWE.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Just before we get into the last bit of the show, one other name I want to mention is debuting in March, Masato Tanaka. What a
Again,
name.
I mean, what a legend.
Yeah.
Absolute utter legend. And again, something we've been working on hard behind the scenes. And that is going to be, so that's going to be at the Dome,
Yep.
which Kid Lycos has almost kind of made it his spiritual home, especially after that unbelievable match they had with Chris Brooks,
Yep.
which I have to say was just absolutely jaw dropping, quite honestly. So that is going to be a very, very special show, and it's going to be, so there's more to be announced for that show as well. But it's a real delight to be able to welcome him to the UK, and who knows how many more times he'll be in the UK in the future. So hopefully people will want to come down and support him and see him. And I can honestly tell you the amount of talent behind the scenes who have asked to be in a match with him has been absolutely ridiculous. So unfortunately, I am going to be bad guy to the vast majority of people because only so many people or one person can face him.
Exactly. That's a job that I'd rather you have than me, to be honest. Yeah, on that one. The last question before we start wrapping up and talking about the rest of the year. How important did you make the on-demand service for Progress? Obviously, there's a few wrestling companies do it. WWE made a massive thing with the WWE Network, but what was your thought process around bringing that to Progress Wrestling?
Well, I mean, in truth, the video on demand side to Progress or to any company should be, in my opinion, unbelievably important. But of course, you've also got to be able to put the resource in to ensure that it's a watchable product
Mm.
because, especially if people are used to watching WWE or AEW, is that there's got to be a certain standard as to the product that you're putting out. But the beauty of Progress is that it really does have such a massive international fan base, and we can see that from all the emails we get on a daily basis to the international fans and whatnot. So to be able to showcase what Progress is doing, whether it's at the ballroom or an O2 venue or dare I say other venues that we're looking to in the future, it's really important that we do that to be able to show to our international fans what is currently happening. And we can see that from the reaction that we had from people, especially in America, for our show as part of the collective. And one of the things that we're wanting to do is we're wanting Progress to go live for every single show as well. I mean, that's something that we're looking at behind the scenes at the moment. So it'll give people an opportunity to watch Progress live, even if they can't get to that particular venue. And it will then also cater into our international fan base as well. So for me, it's incredibly important. And we're working really, really hard on Demand Progress Plus to not just have Progress, but the plus is to have other promotions and other creative type entertainment programs that are also going to be on the platform. So there's a number of other promotions that are on Demand Progress Plus, and there will be a lot more other promotions that are going to be joining us later on in the year, which I'm unbelievably excited about. So it's very important, and also as well, it's this. So I mean, for example, and again, I don't see eye to eye with him. I don't, and I'm going to be again very frank about that. But the work that Tate Mayfair's is doing at TNT Extreme Wrestling is absolutely unbelievable. Like I said, don't necessarily respect him and some of his ways of doing it, but you can then see the evolution of Tate Mayfair's, where, dare I say, I mean, to quote him, where greatness began. And it's not just in Progress, it's in TNT, it's in other promotions such as, there's a whole variety of which. So you'll be able to see the talent that you really are massive supporters of, not just on our promotion, but other promotions collectively. And then the idea is that we'll be able to put a whole variety of different packages together. So, for example, we've got best ofs on there. So if you go on to Demand Progress Plus, you've got the best of Walter, you've got the best of Pete Dunne, you've got the best of Will Ospreay, you've got the feud between Ilya Dragunov and Cara Noir, you've got all these different things that we put together. You've got some of our Endeavor shows, you've got shows that were happening on our last American tour and more. So we're really trying to create a massive hub for everything that is wrestling related on the independent scene and more. And it's something that we're really proud of. We've got some great programs that are on there, and hopefully if anyone wants to check it out, just please just Google Demand Progress Plus, sign up and go from there.
There you go. You heard it here first. Do that, please. I'd love to. I'm going to be, well, I have done it already, to be fair, but so that's I already get the benefits.
Well,
And it is
thank you, Adam. We appreciate the support, man. Thank you.
it is brilliant. I can recommend it. It's fantastic. But Lee, as we go to wrap up now, anyone that wants to buy tickets to Progress, you've got a load of shows like the Dragon. You've got Twisted. You obviously got the Diamond Dust in the Dome. You've got Super Strong Style 16, a free day event, and Wrestling Never Sleeps coming up all in the sort of first part of the year. Where can they go and buy tickets for these shows? And please do, once Lee tells you how to go and do it.
No, I really, really appreciate that, Adam. And there's also our Philadelphia show that's going to be available as part of the collective, which I think ticket sales for that, I think, go on the 12th of January. But again, please don't quote me on that. But literally, just go to the Progress website, progresswrestling.com, click tickets, and yeah, join us. And what I would say as well is that if you haven't been to a Progress show before, try and experience it firsthand yourself. That's so, so important because the reality is that there are, we're growing the fan base to a new fan base. Of course, Progress has evolved, but give us a chance, give us a shot, and if you like it, you like it, you don't, you don't. Feedback appreciated either way. But the one thing's for sure is that we're really, really proud of all the stuff we're putting on at Progress, and we'd love to meet new people to come down to the ballroom and beyond.
I tell you what, I went to the long Halloween last year. It was brilliant. You've got a core fan base as well there. There was a conga line that went on for about 20 minutes, and some of the wrestlers started getting involved in it as well. It was a brilliant night. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't wait to personally return to Progress, which I will be very, very soon. But Lee, I just want to thank you so much for your time. Before I say goodbye to everybody, I've got to reel off our sponsors quickly, the people that we're sponsoring. We've already mentioned the Demolition Woman, LA Taylor. We've also got Adonis Payne and Artemis singly. They're available to be booking, but they are an intergender tag team called the Odyssey. So please reach out to those guys. All the booking information will be on our pages. Also, a close personal friend of close personal friends, Taylor James, is also one of our 2025 sponsorship, as is the wonderful, the lovely Aluna Blue, whose birthday is today. Happy birthday, Aluna. And she is going for the debuting Hitting the Turnbuckle Women's Championship, which will be defended on the 20th of January at Apex Wrestling. And of course, the Turnbuckle title that will be defended on the 4th of February, Eddie Dennis versus Smashing Mike at Ignite Wrestle Pro. Get your tickets to those shows as well. But Lee, it's been brilliant talking to you. I've had an absolute blast talking all things Progress, and I will definitely see you at the Electric Ballroom very, very soon.
Fantastic. And Adam, thanks so much for having us. Really appreciate the support. And yeah, look forward to seeing you down the ballroom soon.
Brilliant, guys. This has been Ringside View on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. He has been Mr. Lee McAteer. I have been your host, Adam Cousins. And until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe.